would you want to come up and?
So I want to go over just real quick, kind of the adjustments,
Okay.
just to bring everybody, circle everybody back around to where we are. Oh yeah, yes please.
Thank you. Thank you.
So there were some,
Thank you.
in addition to, so on the sheet that you're receiving, you know, as we go through the budget, there's a lot of moving parts. So we typically had some administrative type adjustments as we get toward the end. And some of those were basically kind of recalculations of revenue shares or department sharing from the city and the county with the various services that we have. So I kind of want to walk you through those adjustments as well. So we have the reduction of the transportation system preservation that was announced, I think 2 Fridays ago, of that 1.278 million that's been discussed. As we go through to adjust the library, the county has a share of that, of what they levy. So by putting the library hours back up, the county then sends more money over as well. So there's additional $42,000 in revenue there from the county for the library. HR, we just went through, we had a clean up there on a calculation for the county share revenues. The DLA, downtown maintenance, their budget came in flat instead of the potential increase that was in the budget. So we decreasing that. And then we also had some savings and reductions of purging cost as we've somewhat mothballed the building and cut off all the water over there. So we had some potential savings there. Then we get on to the use of that. So you can see that the sources total up to $1,475,806. Everything always balances to the uses of $1,475,806. So we stay in balance. We have restore the sidewalk cuts to the CIP of $500,000. The library hours ended up at $421,617 to restore all those. And then restoration of playground, $120,000. Restoration of roads and parks, $100,000. Urban development downtown, approximately $88,000. Emerald ash borer, 50 street trees, 20. And then the $150,000, which was discussed last week at the press conference, is included as miscellaneous contractuals. And then we had some small, minor kind of administrative adjustments also to the city's share, I guess, of shared services like emergency management, planning, purchasing, and then the JPA revenues. So those all total $1,475,806. Moved on to non-tax funds. So the Community Health Endowment, their board just passed their budget. They had originally submitted a $2 million budget. This increases it to $2.5 million. So I think this is all part of the resiliency fund that the board was working on. So that there's an increase there. And then we have the CIP increase. So a source for highway allocation bonds. We told you we do a minimum of $5 million. And LTU came back and thought they could do $10 million within the next year. So in order to do that, we need the appropriations. So this appropriates $10 million as a source of the bonds. And then on the use, on the non-tax funds, you can see the $10 million increase in system preservation dollars.
A lot here, actually. Are we,
My understanding is we don't vote on this because this is part of the mayor's budget proposal to us.
Yes.
So this is part of the.
okay, that was going to be my question. This isn't anything we're voting on
No.
today.
No, but I just wanted to make sure we went over publicly all of the changes that are being proposed as part of the mayor's base. So The mayor has until July 22nd to make any changes. So this is the summary of all the changes that have been made today. And then the proposal that the council has received from Chair McGinnis was to use $1.278 million in general fund balances to restore the cut that we just talked about for general fund revenue for streets CIP, which was going into system preservation. And that's, I think, what we're here to take a vote on
That's the
today.
only action today that we
So-
will be taking.
I move Councilman McGinnis's proposed change to use $1,278,000 in general fund balances to restore the general fund revenue for street CIP.
Can I second?
I'll second it.
Okay, seconded by Tammy. Discussions. Yes, Benny?
Yeah, I've got lots of questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe, or you or Mr. Kaufman can, general fund balances as opposed, I do speak with people in our community and they say, do we have a rainy day fund? Are we using that? Is that the general fund balance? How would you define that? And tell me how this would affect the mayor's budget if we,
Okay, so general fund balances are basically our reserve funds that are held over in the general fund. At the end of 1819, we had about $44.6 million. So that was 25% of general fund. That was down about $8.7 million from the prior year. So we had a drawdown in 1819. And then we're expecting a drawdown for 1920 right now. Estimates about 6.9 million. So that'd leave us with 37.68 million. That's about 21% of general fund. And we're all, based on the policy, it's always your ending balance looking at the next year's budget. So these are estimates for 1920 drawdown. And then the 2021, so estimating 36.4 million, that's with a drawdown of 1.3 million. And then we're basing that off of an estimate for the second year budget. That's pretty well known at this time. We have estimates because we went through the development process on the second year. But that would draw it down to like 19.7%. Policy is 20% according to the city council. So that could potentially draw that down below the 20% requirement.
so, I'm sorry, hang on. If we have the council have set a 20% minimum, how does that affect the city if we go below our 20% minimum? Are there negative consequences for that?
So I think the potential consequence that we face really is from rating agencies and a potential downgrade. So we primarily utilize two rating agencies, Standard & Poor's and Moody's. Moody's is typically known as the more conservative one. We have a AAA from Moody's. If we keep drawing down, we could potentially see a downgrade from Moody's or a negative watch, at least at a minimum, from the city. So minimum negative watch to a potential downgrade to a AA+. That probably has residual effects, especially if water, they currently have a AA+ rating. They would probably be downgraded as well because your revenue funds are always typically a notch below whatever your general obligation funds are. So, I mean, that's the main consequence. And, what that states in the end, it looks at a credit worthiness of the city. AAA is obviously the best that we can get. And we would pay potential more cost if we go to market for bonding or refunding. We wouldn't have as great a savings from a refunding standpoint.
I have more, but I'm going to stop now because I have fellow council people that want to ask questions.
Councilperson Washington.
So back to the engine, think of another question. So we've been using this refunding as a good mechanism for finding savings. And Sorry, my microphone was off. We've been using
Thank you.
refunding as a way to find savings. And so there's some concern with having our bond rating go down and then having our refunding not be as beneficial. But my first question really had to do with the first set of numbers that you were throwing out there.
Okay.
And the percentages. So right now, I understand that with the expected drawdown in this fiscal year still left, we're going to end up at about 21, almost 22%.
Yes.
And, but if we take what you expect us to take as a drawdown next year, we could be below 20%. Is that correct?
Yes, potentially.
Okay, because you were talking about next year, and I started to, I don't know, my brain started to filter closed because I don't know what next year's budget is, and you're already forecasting we're going to take $1.8 million out of our reserves.
So we keep a 5-year forecast
Okay.
for our taxing funds, and so we're always kind of projecting forward. So at this point,
Okay.
you know, we have an estimate for 21-22 budget, and so the policy always compares forward. So we're using that estimate for 21-22.
21,
Now, obviously, there's going to be adjustments as we move forward to 21-22, so that number could change as well.
Okay. So I'm going to ask one last quick question and move it back to the chairman. What is it that we're not looking at right now that could come up and bite us and become our next necessary need to draw down? Like our mask policy. Are we going to have some financial issue having the mask policy in place? I mean, CARES funding, would some of our CARES funding perhaps not come back to us, reimbursables, and that would cause us to have to draw down some more?
So from the CARES Act standpoint, I think the governor came out today and said that he wouldn't withhold funding for
Okay.
CARES if local entities put mask requirements in place. So I think that question might have been
Okay.
kind of settled today. I guess the largest unknown that we have right now is COVID-19 and its impacts, and you know where we go from here in the future. If we have football games, if we don't have football, if we have basketball, or if that all looks different, anything that's an impact to the local economy right now could potentially be impacted by COVID and direct health measures that are in place. So I think that's the biggest unknown, and that's why I think, you know, I'd just advocate that you be very cautious with this budget moving forward, because there are so many unknowns with the budget. Like, I know we just received this news last week that in January we're going to have a $1.4 million payment on refundings, which is part of the Nebraska Act that the legislature is talking about today. So I know for a fact, and we've typically averaged maybe somewhere around $1 million annually, and now we've got a payment of $1.4 million. So that's going to make our January distribution for this upcoming fiscal year lower than expected. So there's just a lot of unknowns, I guess, moving forward in the next budget cycle with COVID, but now we have this impact with the Nebraska Act as well. So
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments?
Benny, did you have more questions?
I did.
Okay, go right ahead. I would say.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Going to run my meeting for me, huh, Jane?
Bad habits.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor to dip into our reserves and add additional 1.2 million to the budget. Would that alter the mayor's budget? Would she change the projections you just gave us? Or will we add more money to the budget in other places?
it would alter the mayor's budget by increasing expenditures by 1.278 million, so we could funnel that money over to the CIP. And from a revenue, it has to balance, so we would increase revenues with balances of 1.278 million.
So this plan would stay in place, we would just be adding another 1.27 million to the budget,
Yes.
spending more.
You want to say something? Councilperson Ward?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to comment more than ask, I think, but it could lead to questions, Brandon. So I had this conversation with Chairman McGinnis last week when he introduced this resolution, so it's no surprise to him, but I am not going to be able to support his resolution, but want to thank him once more because I've learned a lot through this process, and that's been really important to me through my first budget process. But I want the rest of you to all know why I can't support it at this time, because I really do believe that no street funds are being taken away from the administration's proposal, and we probably disagree, Mr. Chair, but I do maintain that the quarter-cent sales tax is left untouched, and that's, of course, by law. We can't use that, and I want to reiterate that as another reason I can't support this resolution, and that streets will still get a big boost with the administration's proposal, and I think that's what we all want and work toward. And lastly, I would just say, for those of you, once again, that read the editorials in the Lincoln Journal-Star, I read those a lot, and they supported the administration's proposal, and I think it's a good way forward this year, and we've responded to the public and their request with general funds, and to put library services back and some sidewalks back and some other services. So with all due respect, thank you again, Chairman McGinnis, for putting this forward, because it is a really good, what's that? Oh, you want the mic? It is a good education process, and I think it's been really great for this council with 4 new council members to understand and be able to articulate what this means to our own constituencies and to the public as we move forward. So thank you all for your patience for me. And thank you for the time.
Okay. Anybody else like to say anything at this point? If it's okay. Yes, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate some of the points that I made last week as well, that I will not be supporting this resolution or proposal to change the mayor's budget for a number of reasons. You know, I feel like I've been through enough budget cycles. I can make comments on this, but I know whenever we dip into the reserve, it is with a very strong deliberation and with anticipated outcomes that are very beneficial for our taxpayers. We are dipping into the reserve because we're trying to bridge a $12 million deficit right now. But to dip back into the reserves for an additional amount for the very important services that they want the city to continue to provide, certainly like library hours, taking care of our sidewalks, taking care of our parks, those all matter tremendously to our constituents, particularly as we struggle through this pandemic. However, but going back into the balances is something that we should not be doing frequently. I know that we did it last year, but we were doing it with a one-time purchase of fire apparatus that is long overdue. We did it so with catching up on some capital improvements for our law enforcement and buying additional vehicles. But to go back into it when we have a more creative method of continuing to provide for all of the roads without having to go into the reserve. And I want to assure everyone, thank you, Councilwoman Ward, for reiterating that we are not taking or dipping into the quarter-cent sales tax. We are not diminishing the roads improvement budget that we have clearly outlined and that we are clearly all committed to providing. I think that was a little bit of misinformation. So I'm not going to be voting in favor of dipping into our reserve for this, because we have found an equally more creative way of fulfilling that deficit so we can continue to provide those services for the libraries, the sidewalks, and our parks. And that's through the highway allocation bond. And I know we'll be discussing that later, but as a businesswoman who deals with finance issues, who deals with a lot of budget issues, and who watches what our current markets are, this is the best time to borrow money for any municipality who has that capacity. And you know what? We do. We have a AAA bond rating. And you can look at what we have on the screen. It shows very clearly how well our city has managed our money and how well our city will continue to manage our money, so that when we do have creative ideas about borrowing, we can do so at the lowest interest rate possible. And that's really a testimony to our team and our staff, who for years and years and years have been good stewards of our taxpayers' resources. And so I prefer to do it that route, and rather than dipping into our reserves.
Okay? Yes, Councilwoman
I will add just
Washington.
one short thing. I agree with both my colleagues about the creative way we found to get more funding for streets. But I must admit, my vote will be to keep our bond rating. I think that it is a testament to Lincoln that we have a AAA bond rating, and it's important to keep that. I really want to make certain that we're following our policies and that we can forecast out one more year of following the policy of keeping at least a 20% reserve. It's critical to me. I want to live by that personally, and I certainly want to live by that here in the city.
Okay, thank you. Couple of quick questions or comments on this. One, thank you, Councilperson Rabel, for pointing out that none of this ever had anything to do with the quarter-cent sales tax. And this had nothing to do with our going forward with our highway allocation bonding. This was just looking at the mayor's proposed budget that they gave to us, and where we had the 1.278 million in there for roads. It was part of the CIP budget that was presented to us, that was presented to planning, the planning voted on. And then now that money's being removed out of the CIP, out of the Transportation System Preservation CIP. And I was just hoping to restore that. And part of it was, for me, part of a promise I believe city made, that we wouldn't remove funds from the city of Lincoln, from the CIP budget, or we would make the budget whole and not do anything. But it has nothing to do with the quarter cent. This is something that I believe that we were working on, and I could support this change of these funds for, if I knew it was a one-year deal. But many of these items on here are ongoing expenses that we're taking the road funds from and giving them to. So that was one of the reasons that I wasn't going to really support this, because a lot of this, it will be ongoing expenses to the parks, to the libraries, to, these other increased mental health crisis response. These could be all ongoing expenses. And that's why I was hoping to keep it in the transportation. I also believe that, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it would be much of a, if any, reduction in our bond rating. I mean, we're talking 1.3 million. We're very strong. He has a strong case, though. This will be the third year in a row. The other part of this that probably got me a little bit towards the end, that I have a funny feeling it's not going to pass, but I wonder how I got that. But the idea of, we've been dipping into our reserves pretty quickly, and this COVID is bothering me a little bit, that we're going to need to move forward. I don't see our economy coming back as fast as what we would hope. The numbers seem to be pretty good with our sales tax at this point. Just hopefully we can carry that on. But I still feel strongly that this money was earmarked originally in the budget for the CIP to go into transportation and roads, and that's where I'd like to keep it. So, any other comments?
I think I just have to clear it up, because I think you're still saying things that can be misinterpreted by the public out there.
No? I
Three
believe
things.
what I said is fine.
Streets will continue to receive, with the highway allocation bond, $5 to $10 million more that will increase our safety, create jobs, and boost our economy, and that's fundamental. The second thing is, you articulated correctly, the quarter cent sales tax will be left untouched. That's a promise to our voters that we all intend to keep. But no street funds are being taken away. By law, all transportation-specific funding must go to those purposes. So we are not, and I want to make sure the public that's listening out there, we are not taking away any street funds. And I think that's what is so important to get cleared up. And I keep hearing that we are, and we're not.
Yes.
I completely disagree with it, because what we are doing, the top line here says, reduce LTU CIP transportation system preservation. That is a reduction in what was already budgeted in the mayor's proposed budget. The only way we're able to do this is because highway allocation revenues that the city receives are being leveraged into freeing up general fund tax dollars to redirect them. That's my entire contention. We are leveraging highway dollars through a bond to free up general fund money that has already been budgeted for LTU CIP transportation system preservation. That's what I'm saying.
General fund money can be used for any element
Correct.
in a budget. And we are supplanting that transition with the highway bond allocation funds that will add even more capability to us doing more improvements throughout the 4 quadrants of our city. So again, we are not subtracting, we are adding. And that is very
Okay, Jane,
simple.
I agree. I disagree with you when it says reduce LTU money, 1.278. So we are reducing from the original budget, general fund money that was earmarked or was to be put into streets. So,
What do you think is going to backfill that money?
pardon me,
What do you think is going to be backfilling that money?
the 1.278?
Yes.
What do you mean backfilling it?
That whatever funding we receive from the highway allocation fund will be used to fill that gap so that we continue to do more improvements.
But we are removing do we know we'll get more highway allocation funding?
Yeah.
To backfill are we going to have a big increase in highway allocation funding?
Well, I think, I'm going to put up this copy, okay, so. Right here in the green was the 46.75 million. So that was the original and the proposed, and then the altered proposed, and that this had a minimum of 5 million. So if we took it up to the 10 million that we just discussed, then you would go from that 46.7 to 55.5 million. With the reflection of the increase of 10 million in the bonds and the decrease in the general revenue of 1.278 million.
If we left the money in there that was originally proposed, we would have another 1.2 million in the budget for the roads.
If it was along with the proposed, now the mayor has the right per the charter to change the proposed, so that's what's been done. So
Okay.
the council reaction then is to base it off the new proposal and not what was originally submitted to you.
Okay. I think we've taken care of this. Any other discussions? Okay, do we need to call a roll? And go ahead, Angie.
Rabel,
No.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
No.
Ford,
No.
Washington,
No.
Schob,
No,
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion failed.
With nothing else, do you have anything else you'd like to present to us today?
And just a reminder that the public hearing's on August 3rd, and then once we get through the public hearing, you'll have time once again to formulate potential responses and changes to the budget. I believe those are due by August 7th at 3 p.m. So that's kind of the final vote round that we have for potential changes.
Brandon, this is a great piece of piece of paper right here.
Thank
And
you.
if there's any other changes, will you keep us updated as we go
Yes.
along?
Yes.
Instead of just waiting till the end to throw them at us?
Yes, well, and we shouldn't have, I'm hoping we don't have any more administrative changes to the budget. There's always kind of technical changes until we get to the end, especially with the current year budget. As you get to see the budget resolution as that's developed, we'll have changes to the current. And then there's also the final changes when we have the August 20th valuations that come in. So there's always a little bit of movement throughout this process as we go along.
Yeah. can
Gary,
you
look
keep-
this way.
There are some questions on this that if we have on this one, that we can just call you and talk to you about.
Yes, and we'll
Going
also post a copy of that online on the budget site so that it's available for everyone
Okay.
to see.
Ms. Washington.
Mr. Chairman, Director Kaufman, now, you've done a good job at making sure we have information all along the way, and I am typically a trusting person, but I'm going to ask a question just because I've got to know. So we've done our budget based on our best guess, best estimate of sales revenue, sales tax revenue going forward. Have we given ourselves any leeway for if, heaven forbid, Husker football does not happen?
Yes, I think we've been somewhat conservative and cautious with the revenue projections that we have in place right now.
Okay.
Now, saying that, there's a lot out there, Husker football, I just told you about the 1.4 million refund, so there are potential things that are going to definitely chip away at that as we move forward. And I'm not sure we've seen the worst yet of the economic impacts. And especially probably depends a lot on federal legislation as they come back this week to talk about extended unemployment benefits and those types of things. So I think, the future is definitely uncertain.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. We'll stand adjourned until 2 o'clock. Directors meeting. you, everyone. I'd like to call meeting order, the directors' meeting with Lincoln City Council for Monday, July 20th, 2020.
Is your mic
As
on?
always, posted in the back of the room.
Is your mic on?
Posted in the back of the room will be our Open Meetings Act for anybody. And again, this is the directors' meeting for Lincoln City Council for Monday, July 20th, 2020. Let's go through our agenda here. Okay.
Okay.
Meetings, has everybody had a chance to review the meetings? Meeting minutes from June 22nd? Any changes or corrections? They will stand as approved. They will stand as written. Any other adjustments to the agenda? See, we have number 10 on there, so we can talk about public comment. Anything else? Seeing none, the agenda will stand. City Clerk, what do you have for us?
On our consent agenda,
Take your mask off.
oh, sure.
Thank you.
It's double filtered, so. On our consent agenda, we will be needing a suspension of rules on items 1C through 1E, and then we'll vote on those items. And then items 2C and 2D will need to be introduced and then voted on as well. On section of our agenda for public hearing resolutions, section 4, items 4A and 4B will be called together. Those were introduced by Bowers, and items 4E and 4F will be called together.
Wait,
4D and F?
E and F.
E and F.
Sonny, did you say 4A and B?
Yes, 4A and 4B will be called together.
Okay, this must be an old,
There's a new agenda that puts 4B in the right place,
okay.
or
Okay.
adds 4, well, you know what I mean.
Okay.
So that's different than the one that's
That's
is
different.
written, okay?
And then for ordinances, second reading and related resolutions, items 5A and 5D, I was going to ask, can I call those together, or would I need to call those two separate? They were somewhat
It
related.
can be called together.
Okay.
There's nothing stopping that.
Okay, so I will be calling items 5A and 5B together. And then under our section 6, ordinances third reading and related resolutions, we will have 3 motions to amend. There'll be motions to amend on items 6C, 6G, and 6L. Resolutions first readings, items 7A through 7G. Ordinances first readings are 8A and B. And then we have a pending list date certain, item 9A, and the pending list itself would be items 10A through 10C.
Sony, can you go back and tell us again on the motions to amend in section 6, which ones again are they?
It will be item 6C, item 6G, as in George, and item 6L, as in Larry.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's all I have.
6L. Okay. Looking if there are any others that we could call together, but no, they need to be called separate, right?
Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
on 6G, I'll be calling the second motion. There's 2 motions, and I'll be calling the second motion, which I distributed, which is amending Bill 2084 to add to line 39 that further the city of Lincoln shall retain a public access easement for the purpose of allowing members of the public to travel through a portion of the vacated right-of-way as pedestrians or via non-motorized vehicle,
In,
to keep 17th Street open for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Pedestrians.
Or scooter, I'm sorry.
so,
Okay.
to clear up, this is your motion to amend number 2, because there's already a motion to amend number 1.
Correct.
Yes,
Got
there
it.
is.
Okay?
Does someone have motion to, who wants to
Yeah.
offer that one?
Who's going to offer amendment one?
LFR
It's
access?
all, isn't it already in
There's
there?
a lawyer walking toward the podium.
Thank
Come
you.
on up.
Something entirely different. Go ahead.
Okay.
But, yeah, so we have motion one, which is for LFR access. I don't know why I thought that was somebody else's question last Monday, and you would want to, that was yours. So, Mr. Chairman, I would let you,
I can't move
You can't.
motions. So we'll have Jane,
I
would
can
love
do
to.
that.
okay. And then after that, then I'll ask for mine.
Okay,
Yeah?
I think we got this all figured out. Yes.
I have one more amendment you may want to make. When you look at the resolution regarding the appointment of the city attorney, the date on that actually says June 20th. And so I think you have two choices. Someone can make an amendment and put in July 21st, or you could just not vote on it and leave the other guy in place. Those would be your choices. But if someone would agree to make that motion.
July 20th?
July 21st.
And Jeff, which one,
20th.
is that also for item 6G 2084? Which item are you talking about?
So I can make a motion to
Oh, the city
withdraw that?
attorney, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I thought we were,
And the reason why it's on there is we didn't update from
It says,
my appointment 6 years ago.
actually, in the agenda, it says July 20.
should be July
Right.
21st.
It should be July 21st.
Can't be
21st,
today,
okay.
because July's 20.
Yeah, I would like it to be correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's amend it.
And actually, on item 2D, when we set the hearing date on Carlos O'Kelly, it should be Monday, July 27, not June.
Okay,
So,
I think we're going to suspend the rules on that one, too.
yes, we are.
yeah, and suspend the rules. And who's going to motion
I'm
to
going to do the
suspend?
suspending rules. and
Thank you.
stuff.
Okay.
God, you guys are going to make me work for
Keep up.
I know. Can't make that many notes. Okay. Everybody
Actually
got
might
this
look
totally
organized.
down, right?
Think so.
Okay, thank you very much, Sonny. Appreciate it. Mayor's office. Yay. Thank you, Ms. Brinkman, for coming up.
Good afternoon. Councilwoman Washington, my throat is now covered in dark chocolate, so I'm sorry if I'm clearing my throat a little bit. Let's see, just a couple of notes from the mayor's office today. As you know, and we communicated with you throughout last week, a new DHM has put a mask requirement in place in indoor facilities across the city starting today, and I'm sure Director Lopez can answer any specific questions about that. But wanted you to know that we are in the middle of putting together a frequently asked questions and summary and additional information that we'll be posting on a separate page that will be linked from the front page of the website where we've been putting most of the information about COVID-19. If you have contacts with organizations or businesses or constituents that have questions about enforcement or compliance or education or access to face coverings, they can contact the health department at 441-6280, and we'll be happy to work through any of those questions. Our Division on Human Rights has also been working to translate the directed health measure, and we do have that available in Spanish, Arabic, and Vietnamese at this point. So just wanted to give you an update on that. Also related to COVID-19, as we continue to kind of adjust our operations, just a reminder that StarTran will go back to their normal schedule on Thursday, where they were before the pandemic came to Lincoln. And so if your constituents have questions about that, please let us know, but they'll be back to normal schedules on Thursday. And then finally, just wanted to lift up that the work on our comprehensive plan is continuing, Plan Forward 2050. The virtual public event where they're asking for feedback from the community is available. It started on July 7th and lasts until August 31st. So we'd encourage people to participate online. The planning department has uploaded a growth scenarios summary that will be a major component of the plan, did a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce growth group last week. That's available and on the website, and so we'd encourage people to participate. Other than that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Brinkman? Seeing
Okay,
none,
thank
thank you
you.
for coming down. Okay, next up, our Director of Public Health. For an update.
Good afternoon. I'm going to lower that a little. The total number of cases in Lancaster County to date is 2,482. We received 52 additional cases so far today. The total number of cases reported last week, which ended July 11th, was 229. And then for the week ending July 18th, this past Saturday, we had 311 cases, which has been the highest number of cases that we reported any week since the beginning of the pandemic. In Lancaster County, we have 817 people who are confirmed to have recovered, and 54% of our cases are in racial or ethnic minorities. The trend started changing since the beginning of June, when we now are seeing 60% of the cases in the white population. Within the last 2 to 3 weeks, 77% of all the cases in the white population are in the white population, and 38% of all cases are in the 20 to 39-year-old age group. As I mentioned before, the new trend, this is a different trend emerging in Lancaster County. Since the beginning of June, we are seeing a lot of cases within the younger population. In the past 15 days, 76% of our cases are in the under 40 age group, like I said, and just in July, 54% of all our cases are in the 20 to 29-year-old age group. And I just noticed on the 17th, we had 12 cases alone directly reported to being in a bar situation. Our positivity rate for cases reported last week ending Saturday is 6.6%, which is slightly decreased from a week ago, but it still remains increased from those previous weeks. We've been seeing an increase in the positivity rate for the past 3 weeks, and we had been seeing a decline for 8 weeks prior to that. So all of those things culminate in the concerns that we addressed on Friday with the new directed health measure as a tool that we could use to bring about some improvements and get school opened and get the university and colleges open. So approximately 37,000 people, or approximately 11.5% of the Lancaster County population, have been tested. And once you're tested and you become a case, you're only a case one time. So sometimes people have multiple tests, and this has been coming up. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's on Facebook, and there must be something going around about it because I've gotten lots of questions, so I wanted to mention that. And to share a little bit with you about the PPE, we've distributed over 500,000 different items of PPE in the community. We've approved 28 events. The only one we denied was the U.S. rodeo situation. We have disseminated 3,500 test kits to long-term care facilities and assisted living, and that number will keep increasing, which is putting an added stress on our Test Nebraska testing. Our testing response has improved. One of our outside labs has opened a lab in Kansas City, and that's dramatically improved getting the results from there. So primarily we're 48 to 72 hours now, and I think you are aware we had a lag of about sometimes 5 to 7 days in getting results, and that's just not acceptable. So since we've addressed that, we're going to be working with Councilman Shope to go ahead and plan some further events. We just wanted to make sure we were going to get test results back in a timely manner. Let's see, we continue to have enough staff to do the contact tracing within 24 hours after we're notified. As of this morning, we're monitoring 610 individuals. And I also wanted to mention this week that, throughout the pandemic, we've had these very difficult and serious conversations with multiple sectors of the community. And just to kind of give you a summary, which I've shared before, we've worked with local government agencies, education, business, childcare, which we sent a separate letter out just about 20 minutes ago to all the child cares in the community, outlining what's in the directed health measure and what they can do. That's one of the questions we've been getting a lot of calls about, parents' concern, and we want to make sure we have the correct information out there. And we've also taken into consideration in making these decisions, we've used data that's from our local community, and we learned from the experiences of other communities. We've consulted with national experts, and we followed guidance from CDC. But most importantly, we've partnered with our medical community and our health systems in the decision making. And I think you all probably heard that Dr. Rademacher, who is our consultant for the health department, recommended the wide use of face coverings in the community. And this was also widely supported by the Lancaster County Medical Society. So I just wanted to share a little bit about who we work with. I mentioned our cultural centers before, but they've been a really strong component in the work that we're trying to do in reaching out in the community.
Thank you. Any questions or thoughts? Yes, Jane?
Pat, thank you very much for this update. I've been hearing reports from fellow retailers about individuals who come into their stores and they're refusing to be in compliance with this new health directive. It's a challenge, there's no doubt about it, to educate everyone, but what are you recommending to retailers on how to handle some customers that are coming in without the appropriate face covering that is required? And no one wants any type of confrontation at all.
No, and I don't think anybody wants to see that happening, but it's, when I was talking about this before, I was mentioning, if you want to go into a restaurant in our community, you have to have a shirt on and shoes. And so if they want to come into a particular place, this is the requirement now, you have to have a face covering. And it's not only for their protection, but it's for the protection of everyone else in there. And I think, what we have suggested and what I've seen happen is to have face coverings readily available and offer one. And some people probably aren't going to do that, but I'm hoping that's in the smaller number. We're getting calls like that from people who say, I couldn't get service. Well, the one thing I would caution, we just need to make sure if somebody says they have a medical condition or another type of problem, that's a different thing. And we don't have to have them disclose exactly what it is. But I think just having the mask readily available and providing it to them, we found that to be a really effective method at the health department. And I know that Pat Leach is doing that at the libraries as well before this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yes. Councilperson?
Thank you, Pat. I get asked often about the long-term care facilities and read a bit about they're starting to open up some in Lincoln. Could you talk to us about that a little?
The state has a phased-in approach for the long-term care and assisted living, and in order to move to the phase where they can allow more individual family members in or other activities, all the staff have to be tested. So we've been working very closely with them. I have to say our long-term care and assisted living have so many regulations upon them. They have, there's 3 different groups working with them. So we're the advocates in our community for our long-term care and assisted livings, and we've been working really closely with them and Heath Bodie, for example, in getting messaging out, and that's been really effective. And we try to work through any problems they have and look for solutions for them. It's extremely difficult when you have different regulatory bodies, and then you have different advisory groups. And, you know, what we've been able to do is bring all those bodies together and ask them to maybe have a consistent messaging and expectations. So that's what we're working on right now.
So
I'd
those
like
three,
to-
I'm sorry, those three groups, Pat, are, when you speak of those three groups, who are they again?
Well, you have ICAP, which is a group from consultants from the Med Center. You have regulation and licensure.
Yes, I do
And-
HHS. Uh-huh.
Right, and then you have an ICAR,
Okay.
a different group.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like just to comment on that, as a professional healthcare provider that goes quite often to senior
Oh, yeah.
centers, living situations. In spite of all of the regulations, many of these facilities have their own more stringent conditions, which I don't think is going to change in the near future.
No, and, you know, we're very fortunate in our community. The majority of cases that we've seen have been in the workforce itself, and many of our facilities have taken, they don't use temp agencies, they're doing all of these other things. So, and they continue to be very diligent. And we've been able to work even within the city with Randy Jones also in addressing some of our needs of our aging community, especially related to isolation and food and that. So you're exactly right, Councilman Christensen.
Any other comments?
I got one.
Yes.
Pat, I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the city and the county, and everything that your staff is doing. You guys are well trained. You guys have a lot of experience, expertise, and competency. And I know that there's been some pushback on some of the health-directed measures that have came out, but yeah, I'm really thankful that you're at the helm, and I really appreciate that we have a department that we can trust, and a department that looks out for what's best for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director. Okay, we're going to move on to boards, committees, and commission reports. The DLA. We had?
Yeah, we did. You were there as well, correct?
No.
Not? Okay.
I was absent.
You were absent. Well, just briefly, we touched on this in our prior meeting on the budget, but the DLA has adopted a status quo flat budget for this year. They did not feel comfortable doing otherwise given COVID, so that they reported that out, and that was really the most noteworthy thing of the June meeting. So there will not be a July meeting for the DLA. We won't meet again until August.
Okay, Board of Health.
Can I ask a question about DLA? Does the DLA have a project, I think, for redoing O Street? Did I see that in the budget? Is that
Are you
DLA's?
doing O Street?
Like landscaping and stuff?
They're responsible for that.
They did a TIF district, remember? On the whole, all the way from 25th Street or 27th Street, all the way down to the bridge.
Okay. And that's in the budget?
It's an ongoing
Okay.
thing. I don't know if much of that's in the budget yet, because they need to have some projects to pay the money before they can start that. But they are doing some landscape lookup. They're doing a lot of that. So they're going to have to do something with some of our ash trees.
Okay, thank
That's
you.
going to be a big part of what comes up.
Thank you.
Okay?
Good question.
Okay, moving on. Board of Health. Councilman Bowers.
Yeah, the Board of Health meeting will be tomorrow. We moved it up a week.
Okay. Councilman Bowers on our PRT.
No major information report from the PRT meeting, other than continuing on looking at some of the places on the monitor list. Nothing major to report.
Okay. Councilperson Ward on the West Haymarket JPA.
Yes, we did meet last month. Our major agenda item was to authorize $600,000 an increment expenditure for the arena, given the COVID situation. So we did authorize that payment to them for their cash flow purposes, which will be repaid when we dig out of the corona. virus situation. So that was our major agenda item. And we meet again this week.
This week?
We do, on Thursday. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilman Christensen, Parks and Rec.
Well, probably the most interesting things to come out will be a couple of naming projects from the Parks and Rec Policies Committee. Naming of the South Haymarket Trail segment that connects N Street to the Jamaica North Trail is being proposed to be named the Chris Beitler Trail. So that will come before that was approved by Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and that will come next to the City Council for final action. Also, the naming of the the Rock Island Jamaica North Trail Bridge is proposed to name it the Great Plains Trails Network Bridge. A long name, but deserved, I think, considering how much money they put into it. Pretty much everything else was, I would say, was about what we'd expect it to be. Things are moving along nicely, considering the situation we're in.
Okay. As far as the Public Building Commission, Jane, you want me to
Sure.
take this on? Basically, we're pretty much done with the county assessors remodel and update. So the
Okay.
county assessors all moved back in, going full bore over there in the corner of first floor. Hall of Justice Security entrance update, where I'd say we're about halfway through that. Most of the major construction is done. There's still a lot to be put in, mostly a lot of the equipment and such that they got to get in there, get it censored and get it balanced and get it up and running. And then the doors, and get the doors back open. So they're over halfway through, but almost on time, real on time and close to budget, so. Anything else, Jane, moving forward?
Well, people have been invited to go check out the county assessor space. They anticipate a huge crowd of people coming to pay their second half of the real estate taxes, and so they're trying to figure out appropriate ways of spacing people and controlling the crowd of people that are eager to drop off their tax payments, and they want everybody to see their space. The Hall of Justice, like you said, the final completion is supposed to be August 12th, 2020, so they are almost done.
And
District.
the courts are spacing themselves out and taking there's some vacant space in the 605 building.
On the third floor.
On the third floor that they're able to move into, and they've been using this room at times. Yes.
One thing I would just forgot to mention, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is the courts are looking at using the Ald Pavilion to hold court there.
The old?
The Ald Pavilion.
They've asked about that also.
Yep.
Yeah.
Creative.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we did a lot of approving amendments and vouchers, and the most exciting thing is we're going to be dealing with our budget in August. Something to really look forward to.
Okay, in our packets are constituents' correspondences that have come in to us. And then we're going to move on to discuss future webinar for public comments. As we all know, right now, this is the last one that we're using the webinar for a public comment period. Just wanted to know what everyone's thoughts were going forward. How do we want to handle some of this? Yes, Ms. Washington.
Mr. Chair, given that we're back in the orange dial, I would like, or in the orange on the dial, I would like us to consider allowing public comment by Zoom, webinar, whatever, moving forward, at least through the end of the masks period. I think it's August 31.
Okay, and this is for the open mic, correct?
This is for the open public comments, yep.
Open public comments.
Not
Which
for
would
agenda
be
items.
next week, and then 2 in August.
Yes, so we have that tonight, which we're allowing by Zoom, our webinar, next week, and then August, the 2 in August. At least those. I mean, I just want us to be responsive to the fact that we have growing numbers. We still need to be treating this pandemic with respect, and there's no reason to bring people into chambers if there's some way to get their participation done by Zoom.
Just a comment,
Yes.
You know, on August 3rd, we have our budget hearing. That would be like another opportunity for individuals to come and have a comment period. And I didn't know if you wanted to throw that in to the third evening or the third opportunity in the
Yeah.
month of August.
I think that's the second issue. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
public comment, which I think we've done very successfully through Zoom. I think the other issue is, should we be discussing taking public comment by webinar, by the same method? Because, right, on August 3rd, we're going to have a lot of people who want to gather here, and they will be congested. I want to be cognizant for the same reasons. And I know we had people who asked specifically to participate today by Zoom. So I'd like us to have that conversation.
Okay. First conversation, I think, is a public meeting.
Okay.
We want to continue with those.
Well, I certainly support that idea for our, continuing through the end of August for the face covering health directive. Certainly, I think that makes a lot of sense. And the other thing I want to reinforce is that we make sure that we adhere to the spacing that we have designated. Like, I know that this one section it's missing a sign to make sure that that person can sit 6 feet away and feel safe and comfortable in the chambers. And certainly for public comment period, I want to make sure that people are either in the Luxford studio or out in the hallway waiting until they have an opportunity to come in, to make sure that we maintain the 6 feet of distancing at all time. And I don't know if we have anybody who's like the point person designated to make sure that we make sure that happens.
You know, it seems like people have been coming in, that somebody's in the Luxford studio making certain that the people coming in wait until there's a space. What I'm beginning to see is that we're not having people exit after they've provided their testimony to allow for someone else to come in to chambers. So that's what I'd like to make sure that we continue to remind folks, that if you've spoken on the item that you are here to address, that you then immediately exit the doors at the front of the chambers, allowing someone else to sit down.
That's a very good point.
Any other thoughts? I have one that I believe our city clerk has done a really good job of regulating people in the Luxford office coming through here and keeping an eye on that and getting people to register and bring them through on an orderly basis.
And in just a moment, I'm sure that they're going to be qualified to be a medical technician, having spent so much time making certain that.
Enough practical hours.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I would just, I also support, I think we just need to be really clear about our parameters. I think it's important during COVID. And just a reminder, we began this as, I believe, as a response to the civic unrest, not necessarily to COVID, but certainly combined together, it's important to respond to the public in this manner. But I also think the way we communicate what this is and for the time frame is very important, because I've had a call this morning from a citizen who thought they could webinar Zoom in before noon about any agenda item. So we have to make sure that we talk about it as the public comment portion of the agenda, and it's always hard to take something away. So even though life is hard, and so we need to be mindful of that as well.
Right.
Councilman Show?
Hey, Councilman, me?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Ward, Ms. Washington. I appreciate your comments. I just also want to remind the public that we do have an email address. We do have other ways to make public comments to your city council. For those who don't feel comfortable coming to the chambers, you can reach us. We're available. And you can email, and we leave phone messages. And I would say it's a similar way to make a statement to us about an issue that you're passionate about.
I think we did, earlier this spring, we said that if anyone put their comment into the council box, the council packet box, that we would accept that comment as their testimony or their presence in the hearing room.
Councilman Christensen.
just to be clear, it's always been official policy that any email coming into the council packet is part of the public record. And even though there have been occasions recently when we've received dozens upon dozens in one day,
Hundreds.
I don't know about everybody else, but I assume everybody else reads every single one of them like I do. So we are receiving that communication, and it is part of the public record. And you can do it even after the public testimony before the vote.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would like to know and probably do a quick vote on, does everyone understand that we would keep the open meetings times open to the Zoom or webinar?
Let's get a clear label on that. That's 3 different names I've heard for it since we've been talking today.
I know, that's why I'm trying to clear up. The one
The public comment section that we have twice a month.
that we will do until the end of August,
Right.
or after our last meeting in August. We'll open that one.
And that's a public comment on any item not on the agenda for that meeting
Right.
or scheduled for a future agenda.
Yes.
Correct.
That will be next Monday, the July 27th, and then in the month of August, those dates for open public microphone will be we have 5 Mondays.
It's the first
it's
and the last.
second
and the
and
last.
the
Second and the
last.
last.
So it's the 10th and the 31st.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You want to call the roll on that?
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward. Yes. Washington,
Yes.
Schob,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Anything else do we want
Well,
to?
did we want to talk about the budget hearing, particularly that people wanting to provide testimony on that issue?
I have a comment on that. That is one of those things, I think that if we open the door to that, it will always be open forevermore for every single council meeting on every single item on our agenda. And I don't think that is what we wanted. I don't want to see that happen.
Well, I just want to address that. I'm hoping it's not forevermore, because I certainly hope that we come up with a vaccine, we find a solution of dealing with this COVID-19 pandemic, and that it won't be forevermore. But because we are in the middle of a pandemic, we have face coverings, and I'd like to keep the public, our staff, and certainly my fellow colleagues on the city council safe. And I think that there will be a lot of public comment for our budget coming up. I could be wrong, and then we get to all go home sooner, but at least people will have had an opportunity to have their say without having to come down in person. And I think the budget is one of the fundamental things that we do besides public safety and public health, public infrastructure, and I would like to have people have an opportunity to be able to express themselves on the budget.
I could support that because we're in the middle of this pandemic. I don't want to see that to become the pro forma way of testifying, but, for the same reasons, we'll be in the midst of this. And the last time we did this, we had about 23 or 24 people speak. It looks like today we have another 22 people who want to come in through Zoom or webinar to do this, and I could be supportive for August 3rd. It's going to be a long night no matter how we cut it or how we do it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Let's call,
There's no motion.
there's no motion.
Well, then I make a motion that we also provide individuals to offer public testimony via Zoom on the budget hearing on Monday, August 3rd.
It's our budget, or what time's our budget hearing on August 3rd?
The 3 o'clock
3
meeting.
o'clock.
It's a 3 o'clock meeting? Okay.
Where we
Is
have
the
a dinner
budget
break.
first, or is there a meeting?
Is it just that one agenda item or the
I
entire
think just
budget?
that, we're talking about just the one agenda item, Jane?
No, I think we'll have a
Part of the
couple of
conversation after the second of the motion.
Yeah, no.
I'll
when it-
second.
Be part of the-
Okay,
All
sorry.
right, let me
Motion
second,
been
so that
first?
we can go into the correct parliamentary.
And it's only intended for the budget hearing where we traditionally have people come and testify on that item only. like, just like we're only going to be doing public comment for the second and the last Mondays in August, this would be the only item that we would permit for public comment on the budget.
Right, but
On
there will
that
be other
agenda item.
items on the agenda on the 3rd that we will not take comment
Correct.
by
Thank you.
webinar.
Yeah.
Yes,
I got a
okay.
question. As we discuss the budget further in other meetings, are we going to allow public comment on those or web
I
comments?
don't think there are any other meetings scheduled to discuss that.
I don't believe there are, but I can check our
Okay,
calendar.
so there's no other chance for the public to comment on any changes we make after the August 3rd meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Just a point of clarification.
On Monday, August 10th at 1 o'clock, we do have a discussion on the proposed final changes to the mayor's recommended budget.
But
That
it's-
is not a council meeting like
No?
this.
People can attend and witness, but they can't speak.
Correct.
Correct,
And the same goes on Wednesday, August 12th at 3 o'clock.
correct.
Okay.
So you have
Okay.
your.
Any
Public
other
meeting.
comments or questions? Okay, please call the roll.
Rabel,
Yes.
Christensen,
No.
Bowers,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Washington,
Yes.
No.
Schob,
He's already voted.
No.
McGinnis.
No.
Motion carried.
Okay. So during that portion of the meeting, that we have the budget. We will have it open.
But we still invite people to come down and testify in
Yes.
person,
Please.
Yes.
Yes.
safely distanced.
And be able to
Please.
bring their information down that way.
Yes.
Yes, of course. But now they have an option.
Okay,
Directors?
Can we talk to directors?
yes.
Directors down?
Oh, forgot that. Bring that up earlier. You have directors you would like to meet with?
Yes, I'd like to speak with city attorney.
Plural?
Oh, which one? All of them? No, I'm joking. Tim, I'll speak with Tim, thank you.
Yes,
Mr.
Benny?
Carey, please. I'd like to speak with Mr. David Carey, please, if he's available. Planning
He is not
Department.
available. He's
Okay.
home. So, Mr. Hendrickson, Steve was going to be down here.
Then I would like to speak with that young man.
Okay, hopefully he's watching.
Uh,
Tammy, you-
Also, someone from planning, Mr. Henderson or whoever. Thank you.
Yes.
I just need to tell Jennifer something real quick.
Okay.
Pat Lopez?
And Jennifer Brinkman.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. We stand adjourned.